Okay, it's being recorded.
Okay, welcome everybody. My name's Ken Dickinson. This is our Red Bluff Park podcast, primarily on Silo's message, but today we're going to be talking about the internal landscape. And the document we're going to be looking at is a book presentation of the internal landscape. It was Silo's lecture at the 8th International Book Fair in Buenos Aires, April 1982. We have Julian to blame for this, who is here with us today. And then we've got Janet, Kurt, and Fernando, and myself, Ken. We're all here to discuss this really such an interesting find, I would say. I'll put it like that, because I think this was lost for a while, or at least an English version of it. So we're happy to have that, and just want to welcome everybody, and especially Julian, for kicking this off. And I wanted to start really, Julian, by, I know you have a backstory about this, right? Of how you ran into it. And it was such a, you told me this earlier, but I'd love you to tell everybody about it, because it's such a fascinating story you have about it.
Yes, hi everybody. Great to be here with all of you. Yes, well, actually you have something to do with this, because you have trained us into, this what you call Easter eggs. Each time you're reading and you skip something and you say, why did I skip that? Maybe there is something in this. A word, a reference, and something. So this started with an interchange with a friend that we were discussing for a while about this moment in which humanity took the wrong turn. Yeah, which we've heard estimations of 8,000 years, 10,000 years, so on. The actual history that Silo has recorded in universal root myths goes back following the clay process and the furnace process 5,500 years ago. So we said oral tradition, another 3,000 years, yeah, fits in. So this friend of mine said, I went to the guided experience, the big mistake, searching for this. No, what was humanity's big mistake?
You did a guided experience on it.
and he says, look, in my big error, I don't know, in English it's called my big error or my big mistake.
Yeah, my big mistake.
There is a note that says, well, the reference to the old people representing time comes from a book by D.H. Lawrence, which is called Apocalypse. And he told me, I've been reading it. It is very interesting. And I managed to get a hold of it. I started reading it 2, 3, 4 days. And I'm almost 3/4 done. And I woke up one morning and I said, I have this climate of, I think what he's describing, because it's a very interesting book where he describes his own experience in front of organized religion and imposition of beliefs. And he starts by saying, look, apocalypse means revelation. That is the meaning of apocalypse, revelation. None of this, everything will end and we're all going to hell. But he describes his process of organized religion and everything imposed and stealing things from one another and claiming that it's original work and mixing things up. And he says, and where is the good side of all these things that we were taught once, or somebody, communicated to human beings? Where is love thy neighbor? Where is compassion and all of the attributes that we're supposed to integrate to become better human beings. So I wake up and I said, this reminds me of something. I said, this reminds me of something. And I said, this is, and I find the word finally. It says, oh, the psychosocial background. And I do some searches on the psychosocial background, which I know that tour that Silo and some friends did in 1981 was actually had as a purpose an attempt to modify the psychosocial background. So I said, this reminds me. And then I went looking for psychosocial background. And after that, I said, this, I connected things. This seems like nihilism, that this whole psychosocial background is nihilism. And then I said, and could this be the abyss? Could it be related to the abyss that we heard some time back? And I looked for that, and lo and behold, I said, there must be a book presentation about the internal landscape. And I found it, and I found the video, whatever quality, but with his voice, with his emphasis, with his gestures. And I just couldn't believe it. I said, wow. And then I watched the video several times, and I read the transcript in Spanish. I mean, all of this to me was new. I was in the Far East when this book presentation happened. My relationship with the internal landscape happened in English. I was already speaking English for 10 years, very little Spanish. So all of the words, like the meaning in life, all of the meaning, all of the words had a English background to me, not a Spanish. The presentation
Julian, your sound is coming in and out a little bit. I'm not quite sure what.
Maybe he's too far away from.
So that's how I came to the book presentation, and I was so happy. And of course, I started sharing it, and somebody, Fernando did the first draft translation, and then we did some improvements, and then we sent it to Danny and Roberto, and they made the final version. That's how it happened. So to me, it was a process.
Yeah, but what's interesting, I think, is you had to connect a lot of dots to get there, right? And you had to have an intuition about it, and you had to have some permanence in. Talk about pulchritude, permanence and tone. You had to keep going, and there was a lot of moments when you could have decided to stop, but you had something pushing you along to get to the end of that. What would you say that was?
I was really interested. Interested because, I mean, I've had this question of where did we go wrong and how can we make it better, if we have any chance of making a better world and stopping this nonsense, because the nonsense has been going from bad to worse. And I had an intuition. Yes, exactly, Kurt. It was a feeling, Ken. I say
a feeling, right? And you
an interest, and a feeling. Like I didn't know what I was going to discover. It was just I was just following my nose. I said to some friends,
right.
I think it's this way. I think it's the other way.
Very good.
Like I don't. Yeah, but I had interest.
Yeah. Well, it's so, he starts out very interesting because he gets into some comments about how it's being classified by, we could say, the system. Is it a religious material? And because it's numbered, it is. And then he points out other cases where things are not numbered, like law documents and so on. But I want to just read you this paragraph where he says, I won't address such difficult questions in these few minutes, but rather I will refer to some topics from the internal landscape, guided by the common thread of meaning in life, mentioned again and again, and always implicit in every chapter and paragraph of my writings. And I wrote, wow, after that. Wow, what a statement, because I never analyzed his work in that understanding or level of detail, that in every implicit in every chapter, in every paragraph of his writings is the meaning of life. I don't know what everybody thinks about that, but for me, it kind of shocked me, really. I thought, God, I'm a shallow person here.
We all did that. I did that too. I'm rediscovering. I'm rediscovering Silo. Yeah.
You know,
I don't know what the other thing.
Julian sent it to me. I think that I was one of the first ones to receive it. Yeah, and it's interesting because Julian has top priority for me. Yeah, in general.
Yeah.
I receive all sort of crap, and we all do, right? But if it comes from Julian, means that there is something there.
Yeah.
And I was absolutely right. I started reading and I felt I have never read this stuff. And very much like you, so many years in the English, that you don't, you forget. And in Spanish, when you read it in Spanish, has several nuances. Yeah. And I was totally in another planet when I finished. That's why I decided I have to translate this now. We have to share with the world. But one of the things that really called my attention was what you're saying, Ken, that from the very beginning, he says, the meaning in life, implicit in everything that I have written and in every paragraph, And I said, wow. And there comes the little thing. The meaning in English is meaning, but in Spanish is more than meaning. It's three things: is felt, meaning or significance, and most important, direction. And I think that is an important
It
thing
is,
to
because
discuss.
Yeah, I think it doesn't
thought
have
it was
that
wonderful.
subtlety in English, really. You have different words for that, right? That you
Right,
use.
right. So direction is beautiful because then the abyss it becomes interesting.
Well,
like you
yeah.
were saying.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's probably a subject that we have to get into.
Well, it's coming next because
Okay.
unless anybody else wants to add
Well,
something.
it is the way he described it here, that the meaning in life is implicit in everything he's ever said. I thought that's the thread, because I've always said, what is the common thread he never wavers from, And you can take something from the 70s or 80s or 90s or beyond, and there's always this commonality. He's never wavered from it. And I thought, this is a wonderful description of that thread of commonality among everything he's done.
Right.
And for English speakers, when you also say direction as well as meaning, then it makes more sense.
Yes.
Yeah.
To me, that was a key discovery. That was the first
Yeah.
thing that just blew me away. As Fernando was saying, I had taken it in English as a passive concept. Yes, sorry, but I mean, I'm not
Totally
making
static,
a judgment. Static.
And because it's static, it's something to go to or achieve or possess, and it had nothing to do with it. That is very interesting.
The direction in life, exactly.
Right.
Yeah, and then, as you can imagine, who am I and where am I going?
There you are, have it, right?
Brand
right.
new meaning.
I was just going around in circles, and maybe I can go somewhere.
Okay, well then, he says, let's take the first chapter. And in the first chapter, he does his classic opening of differentiation. He did that in The Healing of Suffering. He did it in The Inner Look. And here he says, as life goes by, is it happiness or suffering that grows within you? Do not ask that I define these words. Answer according to how you feel. Who says that to you? Everybody gets involved in a dialectic and I'll give you my opinion about it. And he just wipes that off the table in one sentence and says, tell me how you feel.
Mm-hmm.
And then he qualifies it. If happiness and liberty do not grow in you and those around you, I will reject your example. So it's a double differentiation, I feel, there.
Mm-hmm.
And I started to realize a few years ago, he has this style of doing that. It's almost like he's using the method or something in his opening. He goes into differentiation with you right away. Any thoughts on that?
Mm-hmm. He goes right to the experiential.
There you are, yeah.
Versus the intellect. He doesn't want to get caught in the field of ideas. It's like, tell me what you register.
Yes.
I really like that whole thing that's happened here with the triple definition of the words, and now the vision of the concept of static intellect and active intuition, you could say, or emotion.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's all operating here now.
Yes.
And it's very exciting.
Well, then he says, leap over your suffering, and then it will not be the abyss, but the life within you that grows. For years, honestly, I had leap over the abyss in my head, to be honest. Not leap over your suffering, right?
Yeah.
And just recently I went, oh my God, I've been thinking about that wrong all these years,
Yeah, right.
That happened to anybody else?
Yes.
Absolutely.
And the
Yes.
same, yeah.
At best, I would remember Rafa's poster, and that was it. I do it. We're talking about you. Check inside.
And so he says, let us turn to the only thing worth addressing. The only thing worth addressing,
Yes.
the abyss and that which overcomes it. And I think you were saying earlier, Julian, you could say nihilism here as a synonym for the abyss, right?
He says that.
Yeah.
Right.
He addresses it. He says, if he would have talked about leap over the nihilism, poetic prose would go to hell. No,
Yeah,
so
it doesn't make it very poetic.
He qualifies it even more, saying, the abyss has this attraction and rejection, which is not this. No, he qualifies him a lot.
Yeah, he qualifies it in the next paragraph. And then he talks all these words. I've heard him talk in different areas over the years. And I have to say again, I didn't quite totally get it. This is things like the annihilation of being, the crossing out of being, the non-being, the obscuring of the being, of human existence, the darkening of the being, right? He's used it in different talks and different language. And it was an intellectual idea for me, I'll put it like that, more than what Janet was saying, a register, right? Here I started to get it as a register, finally, I felt, or a feeling. That anybody else feel like that about that?
Yes. Yeah, it's no longer a philosophical debate.
Yeah,
It's
because he
something
said
that we feel.
it's not an entity in itself, the being.
Exactly.
That's the key word I felt.
That's really good that you joined us, Janet.
Well, thank
That's
you.
very insightful.
And then he talks about this. He chose the concept of the abyss because of its evoking vertigo. And I wanted us to talk a little bit about vertigo in this context. I almost was thinking, in one moment, I was thinking of Luke Skywalker and Darth Vader, you know.
Hanging from the
Yes, over the abyss, right? And he lets
yes,
go. He lets go.
with
It's
one
very
arm
symbolic.
only.
Yeah.
But you see that he calls it the triumph in suicide or an intoxicating destructive fury. You couldn't pick a better moment in history for the triumphs of suicide and the intoxication of destructive fury. It's going on all around us in every part of the world right now, right?
Yes.
Yes.
And it's really now finally arrived to the US too. I mean, in full force. And you can
Yes.
feel it. This theme right now of the abyss and nihilism, I think is super important for this moment.
And then in the next paragraph, he I think tries to address some other abysses. So he says, we're not dealing here with the anguish that erupts within the living human being or nausea as a passive disintegration of meaning. So he makes a direct reference to Kierkegaard with the anguish and Sartre with the nausea. And Julian, you had a comment about, he doesn't mention them here, but you have some recollection that he does mention that. Was it in the Reykjavik, Icelandic?
In the Reykjavik talk about Humanize the Earth, which includes the three books, The Inner Look, The Internal Landscape, and The Human Landscape.
And he
in that introduction, when he refers to the internal landscape, he specifies it even more, because when I read it first, I thought of that, but there he actually says it.
I see.
Yeah.
And I think it's almost word for word, but he adds in the names Sartre and Kierkegaard there.
But he adds other things that I think are worthwhile checking if you guys are interested in that book presentation.
Yes.
It's in Silo Speaks, The Internal Landscape, and all three books. But
I love that talk. It's a wonderful talk, that.
Yes.
Because it's very mystical in a way, you know, mythological.
Mythological.
Because he uses some of the Icelandic myths in it. It is worth, it's worth reading again.
Yes.
And then we arrive to an Easter egg here. He says, but rather vertigo and the attraction of nihilistic action, the deus inversus of life, which struggles with it for recognition. The deus inversus of life struggles with it for recognition. I had no idea what the deus inversus of life was. And I think you had the same thing, Julian, didn't you, with that?
Yes, I mean, you have trained us, Ken, not to leap over the words that you don't understand, but mark them and research them. Yes. What I find.
Go ahead.
What I find very interesting in this is that he says he reaches, I don't know if in this paragraph or in the next, where he says the duality, because this theme of the duality, it's very old too, of not considering there is not a duality, that is one same thing that could go this way or that could go that way. No, it's going the opposite way of creation, going in the entirely different. I mean, do you remember how we used to feel when he says, well, the big question is whether you want to live and in what conditions. And we would be in shock. He said, but how could it be? Well, today makes perfect sense.
Yes.
I mean, it's in the sense. So Deus in versus is something that Madame Blavatsky came
Right.
up with, and you've been checking too, Fernando?
I did,
Or where you-
absolutely. I did check the whole thing and then found Blavatsky. Not on the regular book that I forgot the name, Isis Unveiled, but it's in a different
Yes,
one. Yeah,
yes, yes, yes.
the devil
But apparently
has
she coined that term. Yeah.
the God has
Of
evil within.
Yeah.
of
In
of,
in
of
in some descriptions, the devil is God upside down.
Right.
Mhm.
yes.
But what I understood by it was that if you trying to escape the duality, and we have it in a lot of things he wrote about, day and night, summer and winter, right? He uses the duality a lot. But if everything is everything, you can't have one without the other, is the idea behind it, I think.
Mm.
It's not you're going to get rid of suffering or you're going to get rid of the devil.
Correct.
They it comes together
Mhm.
when we're living in a dualistic world, you have both. And so you have to reconcile the opposites. I think that's what he would
Mhm.
say probably. Go ahead.
My experience trying to deal with this, and he stresses it a lot in when he talks about morale. Actually, in many other of his writings, he says, and in this same book, he says, everything you want to follow, everything you want to persecute,
Mhm.
everything is within you.
Within you.
Yes,
But
right, he does. Yeah.
within you. But I felt, yes, he's stressing, dude, it's your choice. You're constantly in front of options that you can choose.
Mhm.
Don't tell me that is the given that he says further on is like, oh well, life is such, or that's the way things are. No, it's you who can always choose. That's
Mhm.
what impacted me.
Yes.
Mhm.
Not that I have to is at every point I can relate to my better side or my worse side.
Mhm.
Yes. Well, it's the direction again, isn't it?
It is.
Yes,
And
yeah.
I have this other note in time or in the field of time, nothing can exist without its complement,
Mhm.
which I thought was an interesting. It's just
Mhm.
part of who we are, really,
Mhm.
like you're saying. So
Mhm.
we better figure that bit out.
Right.
I mean, I'm regretting not figuring that bit out sooner, to be honest.
Mhm. Mm.
Well, lucky we did. Lucky we did.
Yeah.
That's all I say.
Mm.
Better.
But it's always freedom among conditions, right? You
Yeah.
can choose, but there's always this structurality that we're living within, and it contains everything. But within that, like you were saying, Julian, you do have a freedom.
Yeah.
It's there.
And that's very powerful. I felt it very strongly. It hit me really, really strongly in the sense of, yeah, you can tell yourself whatever story you want, but you're always choosing.
Mhm.
No? Gently, I'm not judging or criticizing or anything, but saying, and that brings it all in. It's I don't know, I had a very strong register of brings it all in,
Yes.
and it gave me force. It gave me, hey, because even this of not thinking that it's external to you, that was a big step for me, that everything is in us
Mhm.
Mhm.
and in others too, and I can relate to one thing or another. So
Well, he picks up on that theme right there, and he makes a little aside in the next paragraph. He says, "Let's make an aside here," and he talks about really Western thought reaching its peak of absolute idealism. But then he starts to talk about optimistic thinkers who try to go in another direction. Um, and even others that he says reacted with various vitalist options. And that is what I thought we could talk about next a little bit, because this is one of Kurt's favorite authors, because the Elan Vital or Vital is Henri Bergson's big contribution in philosophy. The vital spark, the creative, forward-moving force is what Bergson called it. So he that's more in Silo's line, you know, and I realized reading about Silo, looking into it more and more, he refers to philosophers that our Anglo-Western mind doesn't know very well. I think Bergson's not that well known, but later on he's going to talk about Ortega Gasset, you know, and those wonderful Spanish philosophers and even the Spanish poets that we're really deprived of in the Western mindset, I would say. Underneath it all here, though, I think he's talking about Nietzsche. You know, it's Nietzsche who lays out this nihilistic trend, right? But that you see these other currents that are trying to go in away from it or in another direction. I'll put it like that.
But he says even within those various currents, this loss of being and nihilism has already taken root.
Right.
Even in those.
Even in those, yeah.
Yeah. That's a very important thing.
Yeah.
And
that
for Julian, sorry, can I?
Yes, please.
Don Zárate, Julian. You remember the story in the Silo and the Liberation?
It sounds familiar, but I forgot exactly what the.
This is for another podcast. But I want to eventually get into that talk because it's the representative of nihilism, and he had that story in the Silo and the Liberation, one of the stories on the book, and
look it up.
it's worth. It's because it's in the subject, you know, and how to overcome and what he proposed at that time. That is quite interesting. Anyway, back to the philosophers.
That's another Easter egg out there for us to.
Yeah, another one for future cases.
Just a clarification, what does Silo mean by loss of being? Loss of being and nihilism had already taken root. How do you interpret that?
To me, it relates to something that he's always been trying to get us close to. And in The Winged Lion, if you remember the talk there of Mrs. Walker and
Mr. Lee?
Ho.
Mr. Ho, that's it.
He says, where did things change? What happened? What was it that changed? And he said, everything changed when we realized we existed.
Yes.
And others existed. I think this is a huge leap in terms of human experience. Because if you walk around like a zombie with no consciousness, with just in daydreaming or hypnotized, what register of who you are and the being within you, being as the experience of the greatness of human experience of being. So we have many examples, and the ones you quoted now is that, you know, they don't recognize the human being. There are other values, there are other things that are interesting, but being human is not recognized.
Yeah,
that's what I suspect he's relating to that didn't happen from one day to the next. It's like, you know, you're this, you're that, you should repent, you know, all kinds of, we've been told for centuries that millennia that, you know, we're not worth
Yes.
anything.
So it's like the growing objectification of turning the human into an object, right? And taking
Yes.
the sacred out of it.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And for me,
And of
being
life.
oh, go ahead.
Of life. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I want to say one more thing based on what you were saying, Janet. Imagine the opposite. That is our challenge, and actually the fact that we're 5 people talking about this is, for me, already we decided to go in a different direction, you know, because the other becomes the most important thing. I mean, we cannot evolve without that concept. It's impossible, you know. And it's dramatic from my perspective that we will value the other as much as we value anything about ourselves. And that, for me, gives me a completely different direction and meaning. That before I didn't have enough registers of this. So, and now I'm having them. So I know that that's the way to go. And that's that's a real human being, the one that recognizes the other all the time. And it's a beautiful direction. I mean, it's moving. It's interesting. So anyway, I wanted to say that Julian said something else.
No, you talk about registers.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. In my favorite section of the Winged Lion, Cosmic Clay, when he goes, to this being that is very particular, he says, and what are the possibilities for this being to leap into, to evolve, to transform? It talks about the layers of registers.
Yes.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. It's one of the items, not just the only one.
Yeah.
When human being stops considering himself or herself as a reflection, a reflection doesn't have any meaning, any
Right.
any being, and all
Right.
those, they add up.
Yeah, I always think of being as about meaning and direction too, of becoming. Being is becoming what? Your meaning and your direction there. And he goes on in the next paragraph, you just talk about Nietzsche there and the slaughter of millions, and Nietzsche's heartbreaking cry, God is dead, the mass slaughter of millions of human beings. There was only one step. This I put brackets around it.
Yeah.
What would come next is a brief respite between tragedy and the future, absurdity, meaninglessness, and the loss of the horizon of life. The loss of the horizon of life. And in his Manantialis talk, I think it was the letter to David, he talked about that, the
Horizon
it was closing. The horizon was closing.
closing.
And
He did.
it was talking about rapid change, right? How can we change more rapidly? And the darkening was almost like he was foretelling that this moment, that the darkening was coming in a way.
I want to interrupt to say how important humor is to Silo and in the world, in the way he saw it. And I first saw that in Cervantes, in Don Quixote, because it was such a striking thing that here is a classic, literary classic regarded all over the world as important, and it's full of humor, absolutely
The entire
exploding with
thing.
humor.
Yes.
Yes. And I
And
love that. And it doesn't happen in English literature. You don't have that.
no.
It's not in the tradition, you could say. It's just not in our tradition.
Science fiction is the only close to.
it almost is a bit like science fiction, that in a way, isn't it?
Right.
And he influences greatly Miguel de Unamuno, who couldn't get out of the abyss. He was in the abyss and wanted to get out, but he couldn't. And then Ortega Gasset, I think, even wrote an essay about, his first major essay was about Don Quixote. So, and those are the writers we were sort of deprived of in the English-speaking world, I feel. Until, who did To Dream the Impossible Dream? It was Richard Harris, wasn't it? It was a Broadway musical.
Yeah, it became a musical.
Then we finally...
Man of La Mancha.
Man of La Mancha.
Man of La Mancha.
Yes,
There you go.
Right.
You have to change the whole thing.
But then here's a really interesting statement next. Returning to our topic, we must ask ourselves, has the abyss, or that which overcomes it, taken root in the heart of today's human being? And if it is the abyss, could there be any change of direction that could withstand a triumphant nihilism? I really thought that was, because the triumphant nihilist right now is sitting in the White House. And he's feeling very triumphant, you know, at the moment.
I will use a plural.
Okay.
The number of ones sitting in the positions of power is overwhelming, and they all share the same lack of respect for life.
They do.
Yeah.
They do. They are in a completely different course than we are. So it's not only here. It's that would be reasonable, but it's more than that. But anyway, let's go on.
Yeah.
And then he says, so how can we choose that which overcomes nihilism if in this gigantic mechanism? I thought that was interesting. In this gigantic mechanism, the options are already predetermined for new generations, for the human groups that are being born at this very moment. If the freedom to choose exists in human beings, then it is possible to modify the conditions in their mechanical development. Can be foreseen to end in catastrophe. If, on the other hand, freedom is merely a pious myth and it doesn't matter what direction collective events or individual lives take, since fatality would govern everything. In the internal landscape, the freedom of human life is affirmed. Indeed, it says that its meaning is essentially freedom, and that this freedom rejects the absurdity and the notion of the reality of the given. And then he goes on to talk about what do you want, moods, and so on. And we come up against, I wrote a little note here, morality around suffering. And I thought we might be able to talk a little bit about morality and how Silo doesn't really deal with ethics and morality and things like that, right? Because they are time and historically sensitive. They change over time. It's shifting ground. He deals with rejecting suffering not from a moral perspective, and that is sometimes difficult for people to grasp. We had that situation in our message meeting, Fernando, I think. You know,
yes.
What do you mean? What do you mean there's no morality around suffering? We should make it stop for everybody and so on.
I know.
We had this discussion at the park also. Up at the park we had it.
Yes.
What I know you have something to say about that, Fernando.
Oh, one side note. In Corfu, 75?
75.
The first group in which you were, Kurt, I think that there was a material called existential ethics. And the first group was the only one who accessed that material because he eliminated it after that.
Oh.
So it's part of the archives, and I think that is one of those to 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 revive and try to read it again.
Existential ethics.
Ethics. It's the only time in which he mentioned ethics, but in terms of existence, it's a really good one. So for the future. But you're absolutely right. Right now, it's all morals.
Yeah.
And morals that are going back,
Right.
back in time, worse, not even progressive ones. So,
and how do you, if somebody wants to get in a dialogue with you about ethics and morality and suffering, how do you go about responding, or anybody for that matter?
It goes back to that question, is it happiness or suffering that's growing within you? You go back to asking the person about registers.
Yes.
Rather than
I
get
love that.
a dualistic argument, with theories and beliefs, because we're all operating by beliefs. But what are your registers? And I think that's what makes Silo so profound, is he always goes to the experiential. He kind of cuts through the chase to go directly to that. And I think that's something, because I've asked myself too, because things are so polarized right now. I suppose almost all over the world, but especially here too, you really feel it. So it's like, what is the commonality? How can I have a dialogue with somebody who's so apparently so foreign to me in terms of their belief system, How can we talk about morality? What can we say to each other? When both of us are operating by a system of beliefs. But if we start talking about registers, it brings us back to the human commonality, right?
Yeah, and he says
Absolutely.
it. Yeah, he says it in a sentence here. We will be in agreement when you say, "I want this just cause because I reject suffering." I remember also in the transmissions, the one he did with Danny up in the mountains there, if you remember that transmission, when they start talking about God, whether you believe in God, whether you don't believe in God. And I remember CeeLo saying something like, I don't care whether you believe in God or whether you don't believe in God. I don't care about that. What I care about is, how does it get you out of your suffering?
Yes.
So if you believe in God and you get out of your suffering, it's great. If you don't believe in God and you can get out of your suffering, God has nothing to do with it, right? So he's going from this very high position down to what you were saying, Janet, your own register of it. And then on the back of that, he brings up his phrase that he uses a lot in this book. Therefore, let you affirm, I love the reality that I build, or love the reality you build, right? And that phrase, I don't think I'd ever really explored that in more than just superficially. Also, anybody ever, what do you think about that? Love the reality you build. It's a nice saying, right?
It's very beautiful.
But it's a nice saying. I can pass over it very quickly. Yeah, I love my life. I do. Yeah, I'm having a great life. Thank you.
The only problem with that one is that he's had to add complications. It's something that you build. It's not what it's given. It's not that you're happy with what you got.
Right. It's not
He had to
right.
throw in something,
Oh, trust you to screw it up,
Vanity, like
Fernando.
you
Now we
did.
got to do some
Yes.
homework.
Back to you and your choices.
What
Yes.
did you say? Okay.
I said, trust
Back to
you to
you and
screw it
your
all up.
choices.
Now we got to do some work along with it.
It was
No.
interesting because somebody asked me, well, why doesn't he say, build a reality you love? Why does he say love a reality you build? And I thought that was a very interesting question.
It is. It is a profound question, I
Yeah.
think.
The big difference between the two.
What do you
And
think?
there is a register for that too, I think.
Yes. What do you think that difference is, Janet?
Well, you know, for me, love the reality you build is like you're being in action. It's a
Yes.
direction, and it's like a sentiment that's carrying you forward. The other one seems to me that the reality is more an object, and so you're working towards trying to fulfill this object, you know, build a reality you love. It's more static. It denotes for me less direction or less, yeah.
I love what I do, people say.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. They do.
Very
That's a
typical,
very,
you know,
Mhm.
but that's not what he says.
Mhm.
no.
No, I feel again he brings back the issue of choice.
Exactly.
Mhm.
I mean, I think later he talks about beliefs. We're structuring everything ourselves. We think that's the way things are. No, you are organizing it in that particular way.
Mhm.
So I feel it brings back again to oneself and to consciousness and to awareness and the connection with feeling and action. And
Mhm.
Well,
In which book he talks about of what reality you talk to the fish and
The
to
internal
the
landscape.
in
this
the
one, yeah.
internal landscape?
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah,
it
we're
is.
gonna get there. Okay,
Yeah.
good. I have
We
everything in my head.
we passed
mixed.
that. We just passed that. That's about the
Oh, okay.
morality and the suffering and all that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, connected.
Well, then we get another.
but sorry, I
Go
think
ahead, Julia.
Fernando's point is very good to help us understand what you just said, Janet.
Mm.
Is yeah, okay, put yourself in a fish, put yourself in a, you know,
Right.
it says, oh yes, we believe that we're all humans and therefore we see things the same way. No, it's a conscious act of constructing,
Right.
and therefore you
Mhm.
have freedom, you have choice.
Yes.
That building is active, is conscious, is wanted.
Oh, that's very well put. I like that.
I like it too.
Mhm.
Yes.
Me three.
And it leads us to the next paragraph. When and here's another little Easter egg that I had to go looking at. In other words, and as ratio vitalism had already discovered, and I understand this is vital reason. This is Ortega Gasset. The system of belief interferes with the notion of reality without realizing that such beliefs exist.
Oh, yeah.
And that in general, so-called ideas and even ideologies about reality are nothing more than beliefs.
Mhm.
And so everybody forgets they're in a world. His famous line is, I am I and my circumstance. So we're not just a being, we're a being in the world,
Right.
in a cultural and historical moment, you know. And I think that is, I feel that influence of Ortega Gasset on Silo's writing there, because it comes from that line of Spanish philosophers, you know, that in the English world, we were deprived of hearing those voices.
Yeah, we were.
This
We
one,
end up isolated here.
no, I always felt that there's something different about these people
Mm.
I'm talking to. You know, when I first ran into the movement, I thought they're not like people I'm used to talking to. They have a completely different. I couldn't put my finger on it, you know.
Right.
I just was attracted to it. So he says, let us now imagine a sociocultural system where the basic beliefs are nihilistic. And we will understand that its dominant ideas or ideology will present us with a world of reality that we must accept or else be annihilated if we do not.
Yeah.
It's like a no exit situation there.
Right.
Mhm.
You have to rebel against it in a way then. Because there's, you know, people can't find a way out in sometimes. Let me just, so for anybody reading along here with the material, we're now at the top of page 6. We're starting on chapter 7, which I think is one of my favorite chapters in the internal landscape. And I'm going to read this statement out. Regardless of one's knowledge or opinion about reality, the registers of pain and suffering are signals that the perceiver uses to recognize that which threatens, that which annihilates their existence. And I started to pay attention to this when I was studying the path with Isabel, you know, because it comes through clearly in there. The register of suffering is a strong warning to you that you'd better do something about it, right? You need to change the direction of your life to change that suffering, or it's not going to go well. Let's put it that way. What do you think about that statement? The registers of pain and suffering are signals that the perceiver uses to recognize that which threatens, that which annihilates their existence. He sort of goes on about mental suffering after that.
Yeah, the way it impacted me was that he refers to the closing of future.
Yeah.
And today I think is a very common feeling among people of not having any future to look forward to,
Right.
not having any future to strive for. So the sense of suffering as the inversion of life is it's not moving forward, it's moving backwards. Remember, he refers to inversion,
Right.
Yes.
You put life in reverse.
Right.
So
It's one of my favorite phrases, the inversion of the growing stream of life.
In life. Yeah. When the temporal horizon's been cut off, all kinds of problems begin to emerge. And you know, a lot of people don't understand the youth anymore. And they go, what's wrong? Well, if they could just realize how that temporal horizon is being cut off, for many of them, it's so uncertain now, you know, and they've got a lot more years to project than us. You know, we're like closer to that moment of transcendence or leaving our bodies, right? But imagine if you're 20 and looking at the temporal horizon going, oh my, what is going to happen to me? You know, what's going to happen to the world? You know, it creates a huge dilemma. And going backwards, not the answer. You know, that wants, I mean, for those who were insecure, they're going to seek that refuge of going to past values, but that's not going to work. So the darkening of the horizon is occurring, like Silo said, the closing off.
Yeah. So he has brought us to chapter 7. He's come through this reference to the philosophers Bergson and his Elan Vital, and then Ortega Gasset about a being in the world. I like to think of it like that. I am my I and my circumstance. And he's making the case that we're not just a natural being, we're a natural, social, and historical being. I think that's the essence of what he's talking about here. And he sort of wraps it up a little bit by saying the objectal world can be modified and transformed by humans. namer of names, maker of meaning, transformer of the world, right? We are that being. But as long as human beings do not consider themselves as becoming and transforming, their objects will be the bearers of their meaninglessness and will annihilate the world. I think that's a fantastic sentence, right? As long as we do not consider ourselves as becoming and transforming, our objects, he puts it right up front, your objects will be the bearers of their meaninglessness and will annihilate the world. I'm looking around at all the objects I've surrounded myself with, right, in the house here. Just let's start there. Oh, I don't even dare go in the garage and look at those objects that I've surrounded
It's a
myself.
disaster.
And those are your objects.
I
Imagine,
know.
imagine
Pertain
the
to him.
human production of objects that should have a interesting direction, and they don't. They
Like a
don't.
missile. Just think of a missile and all the fucking
Yeah,
missiles
all
we've
that shit.
Yeah.
been throwing around lately, you know.
And I always think, God, you imagine that all that production is in a different direction.
Right.
All the things that we can build, all the transformation that can happen. Because right now people are, I mean, I had a, sorry, interrupt a little bit, but I had a dialogue today with somebody about, because he was concerned that he spent too much time on Facebook. Yeah. And then I said, and what do you read? Well, I read all this shit about Trump. And why do you do that? Well, I cannot stop myself. Yeah. But it's not helping me. And I said, well, you know, the guy is not going to live more than 5-6 years more. So why you worry? Oh, no. And then we will have somebody else. Yeah, we will have another idiot, I said, because we haven't done anything to produce anything important into politics. And I don't know why I said that, you know, seriously, honestly, but it produced a complete change in direction of the conversation, because the guy said, well, what are we going to do now? And then I said, yeah, what are we going to do now? What will you do now? And then the entire thing was, what happened if you eliminate money from politics? Just a simple thing. And then the conversation went, but it's what I am trying to say is amazing how conditioned we are right now to do what is being thrown at us, you know, and nothing else exists practically. Because the guy said, well, we have needs. Yes, we have needs. 3. You eat, you drink, and you breathe. And that's it. Well, yeah, you have impression. No, we need power. We need money. We need, no, I said, you want. What do you mean you want? And then, you know, I begin to realize, yes, we are in agreement, but the world is not in agreement. The world is going in a direction that is very painful. And so it pains me too, you know, to see all of this. I mean, I'm not immune. We are not immune to all of this, but I do recognize that that's not my direction, you know. So something important, but I feel that even if it is my direction, it has also not much meaning if other people are not with me, you know. So I have all of you that I am incredibly eternally grateful. Yeah. But I feel that eventually what we have to say will be meaningful, will be, you know, will be more accepted. But the crisis is just starting. So
It's just starting.
you know,
But it's
we're not
interesting.
there.
Stilo says here, he says, it's important to recognize your becoming and transforming.
Transforming,
He uses
right.
those becoming and transforming, both words of action, you know, that we're not fixed, our nature's not fixed. And if anything, we have to recognize that nature, which is in the realm of freedom.
Yes.
Becoming and transforming, or in the house of freedom.
Yes, very well said.
Mm.
And we're in chapter 7 here. And this is, if I had to just move to a desert island, and if they said you can take 3 paragraphs from CeeLo, only 3, what 3 would you take? What one of them would be from the commentaries on the message, about the collision of the mind
In
with
mind.
meaning.
Mm-hmm.
That beautiful phrase there will illuminate you in some point. And then this one, I'm going to read it. Namer of 1,000 names,
Yeah.
maker of meaning, transformer of the world, your parents and the parents of your parents continue in you. You are not a falling star, but a brilliant arrow flying toward the heavens. You are the meaning of the world, and when you clarify your meaning, you illuminate the earth. When you lose your meaning, the earth darkens and the abyss opens. I will tell you the meaning of your life here, to humanize the earth. And what does it mean to humanize the earth? It is to overcome pain and suffering. It is to learn without limits. It is to love the reality you build. I used to object to this before, right? Because I would say, who does he think he is telling me what my meaning is? It's my meaning, right? I get to choose that,
Mine.
right?
It's mine.
Yes. But when it's just recently, really.
Mhm.
I mean, I got over that a long time ago, but if you say direct, I will tell you the
Direction.
direction of your
Your
life,
life.
right?
It changes everything.
Yeah, it
Completely
does.
changes everything. So this
Yep.
is back to the 3 meanings of meaning discussion in English, I would say. Yeah.
I'd
It's
like to
beautiful,
say,
actually.
Sorry?
yeah, I'd like to say that I had resisted this paragraph too, in that of the namer of 1,000 names, you are, because, we all had problems with our families. So it says, I'm the continuation of these people. I said, no.
Not those guys.
Well, we're rebels. We are a generation of rebels. So, but it impacted me to something else that, as you have been saying, I mean, I think we're all realizing that this of a social historical being was not a register. And
Yes.
thanks to, connecting with this talk and trying to go deeper, I said, yeah, I mean, it is so synthetic, the whole talk. It's all connecting everything with everything in such a way, is so nicely structured. We can go to anything from here and be back to it and back again, and about meaning and about all the other things that we've been mentioning. One, to me, that had no register is the historical social being. That I am a historical social being. That's why I said, is who are you and where are you going?
Right.
No? Became clear. I mean, to me, all of this is connected with the message. It's not something else. It's part of it.
It's definitely a different dimension for me too, that
Yes.
sentence, because it was not before until, we start reading it and discussing it, that where you going becomes more important, more real.
Yeah.
With the register, that's what I'm talking about.
Yes.
I didn't have a register.
Right.
It was abstract. It was,
Exactly.
static. It was, this
Yeah.
suddenly made it very real and opened doors and showed the way and encouraged to move.
Yes.
It's so interesting. For me, the first time I read this, it just hit me like a bolt of lightning. I just went, that's it. You know what I mean? I felt like that's exactly it. I don't know. And it's motivated me ever since. I got this real physical register of that passage, you know, and about clarifying the meaning. I don't know. You know, I just met
Mhm.
CeeLo right before that. And so it just kind of was a confirmation that this is exactly where I needed to be. So, but it takes on more importance now, more relevance. Because
Yes.
I feel we're agents in the world now. We're like these beacons of light, like CeeLo said. And we've got to take it. I feel I've got to take it everywhere I go now.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Yes.
Mhm.
Because there's a darkening. So we have to, you know, I feel like whoever I can touch.
The torch.
Right, carry the torch.
And Julian, going back to your comment, you know, because he said right at the beginning, every paragraph, everything I write is about meaning, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you brought up the parents of your parents continue in you, and you know, I've got a few back there that, but then it pushes, you have to reconcile with that. So that's about,
Exactly right.
you know, you're forced to reconcile. You can't just gloss over that and say, well, okay, but these are not included, you know. I'm not counting that side of the family.
Not Uncle George.
We'll we'll
Gonna
go.
get
We
rid of
can't go
Uncle
past
George
any
there,
of it.
the horse farmer.
But aren't these the real issues of our lives?
Yeah,
That's
they are.
it.
Right.
The things that hold us back or the things that push forward? I mean,
Yes.
so it's worthwhile attending, as you're saying, Ken. Yes.
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
thank you for finding this and just saying, okay, I need to have a different look about everything that
Right.
I know,
Yeah.
because I have made beliefs even about Silos
Yeah, of
contribution.
course.
I thought I understood. Well, okay, a nice little belief here, and that's it. And he says, "Hold it, dude. Let's look at it all of this again."
And he doesn't want you to forget the ancestors
No,
because in the well-being ceremony, you invite in people who aren't here in our time and space. You know, he could have not had that in that at all.
right.
So there's a really important purpose for that, you know.
I agree. Do you have time for an anecdote?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. I don't know if I said this to you, but I'm losing my memory, so it's one of those. But about, I think that it was about 10 days ago, I had a dream, but I realized that I was not dreaming. Yeah, you probably know those states. Yeah, you're in semi-sleep and everything is completely different, and you know that you're not dreaming because you're in semi-sleep, but at the same time you're almost there. Anyway, and then my father came, and I said, "Thank you for inviting me. I found out that you were asking for me, and thank you for inviting me." And I said, "What in the hell am I doing here? This is really weird." And then I realized that I was having a dialogue with him, with my dad. And then I said, I have to write down this. And I forgot. I went back to sleep. And the next day, I decided this is very important because my general feeling until now is being when they told me your dad died, I felt nothing.
Mm-hmm.
I felt nothing. And I was very happy feeling nothing. And I justified perfectly well. I had a little package done. He was irresponsible. He didn't do shit, etc., etc., etc. And then that was it. I didn't have to feel anything because I wasn't much in contact with him. But I did ask for him, and it's true. The other day, I did ask for my dad. It came in the ceremony of well-being, and then I got these thoughts, and then I realized I have to do something with this. I had to, and because we're like we were saying, we have to deal with everything that comes to us because it's meaningful,
Mm-hmm.
and it's an opportunity to change things. So I wrote an entire story. I'm in the process of, I call it Letters from My Dad. And there's 7 different things in the letters in which he explained his perspective, not mine. And it's an incredible work that I am so grateful, because I finally got a reconciliation, with an important person
Yes.
in my life. And so anyway, but all of this is somehow connected. That is an interesting thing, because I would have not gone at all into any of this if I have not done the asking and I have not read this material, in which it says at the very beginning, your parents and the parents of your parents, and I had the same reaction. Come on, give me a break. I am not even going to even have somebody else, No, what you got is what you have to work with,
Yeah.
And
Right.
then it changed. I mean, I actually am very grateful, because it changed my perception, my and actually my relationship, now is
I
a
just
friend.
want to
That's
add
like a
to, yeah,
self-transference.
it's like
It,
a
it
self.
was it's exactly
You're really
pretty much
right.
like that.
I just kind of wanted to add to Fernando, because my dad just fell over dead when I was 14. I was 2 days after being 14, and he went to work, just never came back. And I had kind of the same feelings, Fernando. And he lived with us and everything, but he was very introverted. So he wasn't a very interactive dad. And so for a long time, I didn't feel anything. And I had the register that, I mean, he obviously, this was an accident, but he abandoned me through his death. And then
Right.
only recently I've realized I abandoned him.
Yes.
That it's just the opposite is true too. Because he did something that I didn't want. He died on us and left my mother a single mom.
Right. I totally get it.
And so along with that was kind of anger and disappointment. And it
Yes.
took me a long time, so that I realized, how many other people do I feel abandoned me, but I actually abandoned them. You know what I mean? And especially those ancestors, we have to pull them back in.
Right, and it's suffering ultimately. We can
Yes.
label it in whichever fancy way we want, but we're suffering over it. And then to leap over our suffering is to reconcile, find a way, change the story. And the story always have more than what we perceive, And to make the effort is beautiful, because it changed completely my perception of my entire family. That I had like a knot there,
Yeah.
So
And anything you don't know how to handle, just block it.
right, it's a very good recipe.
How does that work for you?
Believing that doesn't take any energy from you. It takes a
Right.
lot of energy to block.
Yeah. Good one. All right,
Well,
back to our studies.
Okay, so he really wraps up chapter 7 beautifully at the end here, because he says, I love this part too. I cannot ask that you go further, but neither would it be outrageous if I declare, love the reality you build, and not even death will hinder your flight. So he gives you an open and limited future there,
Yeah.
right? And then he nails it with going back to the being in the world. You will not fulfill your mission if you do not apply your energies into overcoming pain and suffering in those around you. And if through your action they in turn take up the task of humanizing the world, you will have opened their destiny toward a new life. And that's how he ends this whole section, really, that first part of the book, which is a beautiful way of synthesizing it, really, at the end, because it's back to what you were saying about the winged lion, Julian. I exist because you exist. It puts you in the world with people doing something interesting towards the future, right? That's your placement, really. That's what the meaning, that's the direction of your life, or that's a coherent direction of your life there.
Yeah.
And then he almost takes a pause here, and then he goes into a discussion with Saint Augustine and time. So I would like to go to the bathroom. I'm going to edit this out, so let me pause this.
I believe that in the current situation in which humanity finds itself, and in parentheses, and of course this includes us too, if we do not work to overcome all censorship and self-censorship, throwing ourselves into the meanings and works of the message, essential change will not be possible. The direction must be towards the profound of the consciousness to connect with the meanings that have been slowly pressing forward the evolution of the human being. Now it is urgent, and we no longer have a way to make this impulse known. Isn't that interesting?
Yes.
Because that was the complete message. That was a complete thing, you know. It was not, well,
And
the
we
message was not that important at that time.
we forgot that part of
Yes,
what
we
he
remember
wrote, David, and just
that one.
remembered the shocking part.
And it's I don't know. I think that is a very interesting thing to say. Okay, I'm gonna go into without any self-censorship, see what's
Yes,
happened. You know, I've
yes,
been trying really, honestly, and it's fantastic.
yeah.
It's a I felt that that is a direction. You see, it's not only a saying. I have a register that that's where I want to go.
Yes.
I
And
think
it's a thing that connects me even with my distant past when I was a kid. That we have less censorship, you know, that we have not learned all the shit that we're supposed to and behave and all of that. That of course I don't want to be rude or anything like that, but not to say the important things is almost a crime for me right now.
and now
So,
when you get in your mid-70s, it's a lot easier.
exactly. We don't
You're
have
like
Yes.
society encourages you to.
It's one of the benefits of getting old.
that is one of the best things, you know. Can say whatever we want. Oh, it's a senile guy anyway, so
There's nothing
fine.
to protect anymore.
Well,
Anyway,
well, you're
back to
taking us
our
right in, Fernando, to the next part. Because he says it's about the time of consciousness, but before he gets into that, he wants to make some considerations around Augustine and his confessions. And he gives us a little quote here. Augustine in his confessions had already discovered the difference between time that is thought and time as experienced. He emphasized, when I try to understand time, I do not experience it. And when I experience it, I do not understand it. That's Augustine's famous quote, right? And from my own interest in Augustine, I had learned that he was one of the first people to have an inner life. You know, Kurt and I used to talk about this. The Greeks didn't really have an inner life. They had an external life. They believed the gods were amongst them and they'd talk out loud to the gods all the time. You know, oh, Zeus is angry today. Hear that thunder? And so it was like as though they only had an external life in the Greek world. And I remember, I don't know if it's true or just anecdotal, but there's a story about two monks saying, "Hey, look at Augustine. Can you see? He's reading that book, but his lips aren't moving." How's he doing that? They were like amazed. How does he do that? He's reading the book and his lips, meaning he wasn't reading it out loud.
Right.
He was reading
Silent.
it silently. And that was like a revelation for them. They didn't, apparently for them, they didn't know how he could do it. So what he says is, this, when I try to understand time, I do not experience it. When I experience it, I do not understand it. That brilliant insight ends up suffocated in Hegel's definition. That's a fantastic way of putting it. That time is the abstraction of consumption. It would take a neo-Aristotelian like Brentano to rediscover the problem and inspire Husserl in his phenomenology of internal time consciousness to rediscover the great Augustine. And the time consciousness is like mental acts and objects, I believe.
Right, it's the intentionality part, the Brentano's business.
And so now consciousness is now a temporal structure in which protension predominates. That is almost to say, human consciousness is organized thanks to its direction. So we're back again to meaning, direction, right? It's all about the intentionality coming in here. Let us invert these terms, and by removing direction from consciousness, we could negate it. That's a clever move. This is the point. The key to nihilism is the negating of the primacy of the future over the world of the factic, the negation of meaning. And in the face of the annihilation of consciousness, suffering emerges as a sign of danger.
Right.
I love that.
Oh, it's beautiful.
Paragraph there. It's going to be my third one I'm taking to the desert island with me. What do you think about that? I mean, that is a powerful phrase there.
What did you say, Julian?
I say, please stay. Don't go to the desert island.
Yeah.
Yes.
I know it's tempting, but
Right.
But in the face of the annihilation of consciousness, suffering emerges as a sign of danger. I mean, we've all experienced it, right? You get amongst ourselves and the suffering comes out at some point. And then you're going, are you hearing this? You've got to turn this tap off and go in another direction, because it really is it should be like a canary. You should have a little canary. We could have a virtual canary that falls over dead when people start talking about suffering too much. Like you're down in the coal mine and
that's a good one.
I can see it. You could be out there virtually, in your enhanced reality. You could have a little canary, and as soon as you start going down the suffering path, it flops.
At this point, we're going to have to review the entire healing of suffering.
Right.
Yes. Julian
wanted to say something too.
I'm saying that to me, it became another of the big discoveries, that of saying, okay, you're suffering, then most likely you're going in the wrong direction.
Yes.
No, or most likely the future closed, and you haven't really seen it.
Right.
Yes,
most likely.
And then we're coming up to your inversion, Julian. And because in all suffering there has been an inversion of the future because of the direction of the consciousness, a withdrawal of meaning, a loss of forward direction, there will be a contradiction as it develops. The book says, we made comments about this, right? You'll
The
spell
book
that out.
says.
The book says, it's not
Made me
Not
laugh
me.
so
I
much.
say, but the book says here.
Is that his humor?
Yeah.
The book says it is contradiction that inverts
First
life.
line.
That's so simple to catch in yourself.
Yeah.
There will therefore be no other possibility than to reorient life toward the future to overcome suffering. So you can't go to the past, you've got to go to the future. You can't go to the present, you've got to go to the future. However, in everyday life, the belief that human life belongs to the natural world is deeply rooted. And removing this illusion from consciousness is not something that can be accomplished through an ideology.
Oh God.
Mm.
More clear, impossible. No, seriously. I mean, it's really an important point because it's not cannot be removed ideologically. There is
It
such a
cannot.
resistance, such a ingrained, it cannot happen clearly.
And then he talks about, the three pathways of suffering, what we've lost, what we don't have, what we think we'll ever attain. And because of that, suffering becomes present and reveals the absence of meaning. Thus, death appears as the confirmation of meaninglessness, since it appears as the total loss of the future. There.
Heavy.
So he says, only by taking death as factic. I had to look that word up. Factic. That's not a word I was familiar with.
No.
Right?
Right.
By taking
English
death
nuances.
it's a concrete fact in your world. And what you think about right away, I had this experience, when my dad died suddenly of a heart attack. I was here in the US and I went home for the funeral, and my mum said, do you want to go see your dad? He's in the mortuary there. And I did, right? And oh my God, I'll never forget it. It was so concrete. It was so factic that he was no longer there.
There.
And that's why the whole death ceremony is so important, I think.
Tells you exactly what not to do, right?
Yes,
right. Don't identify with the body.
Right. This is not the body.
But this is a provocative paragraph here for me. Thus, only by taking death as factic and breaking the illusion of the naturalness of the consciousness, that the consciousness doesn't go with death, they say. That's how a naturalist would think about it. This is Janet's uncle. When you're dead, you're dead.
You're dead.
Right? You always used to say that to us, Janet.
Yeah. And I tried so hard to get him to think otherwise.
So he's rebelling against this naturalness of the consciousness, affirming its future. That's the only way suffering can be overcome, and the only way every human act can be endowed with meaning. There. I might have to put this in my desert island.
This eliminated in one pass eliminated guilt, all sort of shit related to to moral concepts about dying.
Yes.
And he said it doesn't exist. You see, it's really incredible what he's proposing, in my opinion, because you have to have like an entire new look into your own death and death in general. Because right now it's all a natural thing. That's what people know, we know, and it's been like that for a long time. and
Yeah.
worse now than ever, you know.
Yes.
So to begin to examine the whole thing of death or life, you know, or how the consciousness, he said consciousness or no, he said
He
consciousness, right?
the breaking the illusion of the naturalness of the consciousness.
Exactly that,
It's
to
not
break that illusion.
Yes.
Shit,
It's
it's
not a
really
natural
incredible.
entity like your body. Your consciousness is not like your arm.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, to me, this is understandable that we got here because everything is objectified. You know, there is nothing human, there is nothing sacred. No, it's just their words if they ever are heard, but then of course it's a fact, it's a factual thing because everything is an object, it's objectified. There is nothing else because if it's not an object, it doesn't exist for me. Well, we say the opposite, you know.
Right.
Yeah.
Precisely.
You can't touch
Wow.
it. You can't measure it. You can't touch it. You can't.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
Right.
all that.
The intangible.
Yeah, well, but you can register it. Who hasn't had those experience of intimation of meaning? You know, that says, okay,
Yes.
if you think that this is it, yeah, you relate to others as an object as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Instead of the profound in others, the human in others, the feelings, no, the future, the goals, the dreams, you know, all that is not touchable. They're not objects.
Well, he wraps this section up right on what you're talking about, the objectification, Julian. When the basis of beliefs of a society and therefore of its individuals ends up identified with the factic, the objectification of every human product and of the human being itself triumphantly establishes itself. And this nihilation entails the destruction of everything it touches. Wow.
That's very heavy statement.
Yes.
It's like the Midas touch, you know, it turns everything. It
Right.
objectifies
Instead of
everything.
gold, destruction.
Destruction. Lack of meaning.
Okay. So he goes on to, he talks about chapter 12, and he talks about kind of what life is, and is it a mirror that reflects a landscape? May life speak through your mouth, and may it say there is nothing that can detain me. So he has some thoughts about that, and then he wants to take us into the idea of faith. So that's coming next. So he says, in the following chapters, belief is already designated as faith. And he says, the different types of faith are reviewed. Thus, there is naive faith that leads to accidents, a fanatical faith that also negates existence, and a grounded faith that is useful for life. And, you know, right when you threw out this squeak toy, Julian, called the Abyss, like several weeks ago, and several of us grabbed it and couldn't drop it, started playing with it, right? I got really interested in this theme of faith, trying to really understand it, because I had this confusion between my old ideas of the religious meaning of faith and the way Silo talks about it being useful for life. And it never sat well with me that before, you know, like what faith. I don't. So I didn't even want to deal with faith because I didn't like the religious view, and I didn't particularly like it being useful for life. I don't know why. Just got this. Sometimes we get these stories in our head that are not helpful for us for our development, and that was one of them. So I finally decided to tackle it by doing a more in-depth study on it. What do you, I mean, I always felt Janet, Kurt, and Fernando had a better view of faith than I did. You know, I always would look to you guys to inspire me to think about it some more. Because I can be quite negative, to be honest, in certain situations with certain personalities and so on, you know. You
Ken,
could believe I didn't have faith in them anymore. And maybe I just don't have faith in myself, you know. If I wanted to
That's
psychoanalyze,
probably it.
that would be where you would end up being.
Mhm. Well, he uses faith because it exists almost naturally,
Naturally,
Yes.
you
yeah.
know, in humans.
he
So it's like
refers to it, you know,
huh?
he refers to it as a tremendous force in other
Exactly.
writings.
Mhm.
As a
It's a
tremendous
very
force.
big force. It's like
Yeah.
the asking. There is
Yes.
a
Yeah,
tendency that
I
we
mean,
don't understand, but it's very powerful.
Right.
And of
I
course,
was
it's
going to
not
ask Ken,
material. Sorry.
I was going to ask Ken, have you thought about the emotional charge, for example? Have you dealt with emotional charge?
Yes.
Do you find any connection with faith
Oh
or
no,
not?
I know there is, and just faith. I couldn't get off the religious
That's what I
connotation.
was going to say.
Even yeah, like some of you know, I like to watch. I'm going to call it football, but soccer for Americans, and my team is Liverpool, and our son Miguel, you know, he'll always come to me and say, "You know, your problem, Dad. You don't have faith. That's your problem.
Yeah,
You
right.
don't have faith. You think right up to the last minute they're going to lose, and when they do, it's your fault because you did not have faith that they would win."
Mhm.
Example of fanatic faith, but
Yeah.
what the hell it
Faith,
is.
faith is as
Good
veritable
example of it. It's
as
a good
Yeah,
if the
example of
soccer team wins or not, you know. It's
it.
right.
variable.
And then Janet says, "I'll tell you what Silo said. You're just one game away from suffering. So you're wasting your time
The
watching that.
fourth V
So
of
we're
suffering,
always one game away
being a
from
soccer
suffering.
fanatic.
Why are you doing that to yourself?"
But, you know, he talks about faith and it's so interesting. I mean, unfortunately, faith as a word has been co-opted by many of the old religions, you know, so that a lot of us who are raised in a church or whatever have the old trappings of that word. But he uses faith kind of as an ex machina to come in because he says at the top of page 9, he says, "Is life but the security for those who fear the future, self-affirmation for the disoriented, or revenge for past frustration? Then we're locked into an enchainment no matter which way we move with those things. If I'm constantly compensating for my life and my lacks, what freedom on earth do I have among that, you know, looking for security, you know, looking for affirmation, all of that." And it's sort of like sometimes in order to leap over our suffering, faith is like key. We need that to come in, especially when the external world is telling us there's no reason to have faith at this point. You know, it's sort of like an element. And for me, trust and faith are closely linked, you know. Trust is sort of like I have faith and I trust, and I may not see it in my lifetime, but I trust that our parks are going to be beacons of light. I just have that faith, you know, that even though it's really hard, we haven't built our hall yet, we're getting there, but you know, we've had lots of obstacles like everybody around the world. And so, you know, I think that faith is just super important for getting us out of the conditions, you know.
It is. I think that he ends the healing of suffering with something about faith.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, he
So
does.
it is
Yeah.
important. My take is that it is independent if we have a religious education or not.
Mm-hmm.
I think that it's kind of a different kind of faith that
It
he's
is.
talking about,
Yeah.
and I think that is a dynamic thing too. You go getting more, you can lose it, you can, you know, it's not a thing, it's not an objective thing that we
Right.
have it or we don't, you know. I
No.
think we go, I would say, at least in my experience, I am more faithful now than I was before.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So it goes hand in hand with a lot of internal work that we do or
Right.
don't, I mean, and don't do on the opposite, you know.
And it's not
So it is
contingent on
something to
anything.
acquire, you
Mm-hmm.
know,
Yeah.
It's
and to
not
value.
contingent on
Right.
external results, and it's not transactional. And
Exactly.
perhaps our faith is a little bit different because I know quite a few transactional Christians.
Right. Right.
They pray for
Very
things and it's
typical.
sort of like a transaction.
Sure.
Please let this happen. And, you know,
This is
and not just
different.
Christians, but, you
Or,
know,
or offer sacrifices.
Yeah, some sacrifices they are better.
right, right.
It's what he says at the it's because it's useful
It's,
Yeah, and he
for
says,
life.
I'll read it because it's
Yes.
really, and this helped me overcome my difficulty with it.
Good.
Surely considering faith in terms of usefulness creates an ambiguous feeling in the reader. This is so because the word faith is laden with co-presences proper to religious systems, and of course linked to the spiritual. It is generally thought that the spiritual and the useful are opposed, or at least belong to regions that have no contact with each other. This should not be disorienting if faith is understood in terms of life and not outside of it. That's what I like. But such a
Very nice.
discussion would take us somewhat away from the comments that concern us now. But he links its usefulness to life.
Right.
There.
And in the healing of suffering, he says, without faith, there is fear.
yes,
Right.
that's right.
Right.
Violence. I mean, I have experienced that. You know, if you're afraid, it's an indicator that you have no faith.
That's
Right.
right. True.
No?
Very simple and very concrete
Without
and
any
workable.
charge. It's like, why am I afraid? And then you check your fear and says, okay, but I can, do something about this. And it will grounded, no, in the sense of, it's your choice. It's your choice. But the emotional charge is what opened my eyes, Ken.
Yes.
Because you can think about anything until, I don't want to give any examples.
Yeah.
But if you don't have that emotional charge, nothing happens.
No, right. It doesn't. You're right.
So
And I know
I've
that.
related.
Yeah. I know that clearly in other parts of my life. And
Yeah, I mean, you've been able to move mountains because of your intentionality and emotional
right.
charge.
Right.
You're known for that. I mean, it's like, but they'll tell us no. Or no, how can we? No. Open doors, move mountains, So that emotional charge, that positive emotional charge, I think is key.
Yes.
If that is
Right.
faith, okay, but it's not expecting results. It's a sense of how am I feeling in front of this situation that I'm facing.
Well,
I have.
we just have a few minutes left because Fernando has to leave. So I thought we're almost at the end. So I thought we could wrap it up because the next section, he talks about contradiction and unity, which I think we're familiar with, and valid action.
Mhm.
And he says it's unmistakable. If I said it 1,000 times over, should you live as many lives, it will be unmistakable. Every phenomenon that makes suffering recede in others is registered as a valid action, as an act of unity in the one who produced it. So to get out of your suffering, start giving to others, is a way. And then he comes back again a little bit to, he calls it a morality of freedom, right? That's the morality, freedom. An immoral act does not begin and end in an isolated individual, but contaminates others and brings suffering to the social body, right? So a moral act is to do valid actions. That's the morality there. If we speak of giving and helping, you will think of what others can give you or how they could help you. I say that your selfishness is not a sin, but a fundamental error in your calculation. For you have naively believed that to receive is greater than to give. And then he finally says, let us hope, the book continues. He's talking about the book again. But I've been speaking to someone else and not to you, since you must have understood phrases such as to humanize the earth, open the future, overcome suffering in the world around you, and so many others that have as their base the capacity to give. And he ends it like this: to love the reality you're building does not mean to put the solution of your own problems as the key to the world. If you want to overcome your profound contradiction, you must produce valid actions. If they are valid, it will be because you are helping those around you. That's how he ends it. And then he just talks at the end about, well, should it be classified as religious or what? Because we're talking about faith and transcendence. And he's trying not to get pulled into that debate, really.
But he recognized,
Yes.
he recognized a little bit of the
that have been kidnapped by the,
Yes. And
Sorry
he just
for not-
says, we could end it like this. I repeat now what I said almost at the beginning of this presentation. The Internal Landscape is a book written in poetic prose which deals with human life and considers meaning as its central value. And if the treatment of such themes necessarily touches on faith, transcendence, and moral themes, I do not see why all this should be avoided.
Oh, what a beauty.
Isn't it? Fantastic ending.
It's very good.
I'm so glad you followed the Easter eggs, Julian.
Yes,
That
me
was
too.
a most incredible story. And when I saw the video, I had never seen that video before. It was like I was looking at it for the first time. So thank you for finding that.
No, thank you for finding it useful, because to me it blew me away, and it changed so many things in my comprehensions and relations. Yeah.
Same here.
Same here.
For all
This
of
is
us.
a very, very useful talk today.
Yes, thank you, Julian.
Absolutely.
Yes, thank you. No,
Inspiring
thank you.
us all, and
because I've been asking friends, tell me what do what did you get out of this? And I it's very enriching to hear all the different experiences and views, and yes, it's a common thread is like, I think I didn't go deep enough, or I think
right.
well, but no judgment, no nothing. It's to laugh. Greatly we did, we're still here.
So much of what Silo's written and said, we're rediscovering it on a deeper level. And I realized I didn't profundize much of what he wrote, you know. I mean, there was all these other levels operating that I'm only discovering now or in the recent past.
Well, again, let's remind ourselves what he said. The internal landscape, guided by the common thread of meaning in life, mentioned again and again, and always implicit in every chapter and paragraph of my writings.
Yeah.
The meaning in life, you know. He never strayed from that path.
Never.
He never got distracted down some other path. He always
No.
right there in the middle.
Yeah.
Great inspiration,
Yes.
I have to say.
All right. Thanks everybody for
So
being here. I'm
thank
going
you
to
for-
stop
Thank
the
you
recording here.
This
Thanks
is
a
very
lot.
much for
you.
inviting us.
Thank you. Thank you
It-
very much.